Hi there, my fencing teists. So a little bit on basic blade work. This is a little off the cuff, but I did think it was something I wanted to cover before the end of my vacation. The position of the blade in your fencing stance or your fighting stance, however you want to think about it, is something that's going to suit your personality and the tactics you want to employ. So the most common is coming on guard in sixth, because that brings your blade to a place where it just cuts off that line. They have to attack everywhere but here, because if they attack here, it's not going to do them any good. They can beat, but that then also plays to your strengths, because you know if they attack here, there's only so much they can do. That's kind of attack by draw, or attack by invitation. The Italian stance, on the other hand, as I learned it, was that you kept the blade in line with the forearm at roughly the mid-level. In some cases, they would bring up and break the wrist. I have never seen that personally and seen that called Italian style. I have seen this. I've seen where they have it almost pistol grip, the palm is facing out, and they're holding the blade like this. Relatively common, especially in the French school, but I've seen this in the same vein in the Italian school, where they're kind of hopping around, palm is up, and they're just ready to lunge. Another variation is what I was told was the Spanish guard, and the Spanish guard was essentially you bring the blade up and you turn the palm out. This would be equivalent to Agrippa's first guard, or an attack in prime, or prime attack position, because from here you can just drop into prime relatively easily, and you thrust, you miss, you can block in prime relatively easily. From this angle, if you see me here, I'm threatening from the top, I thrust, I miss, I can pull into prime, or pull into your high prime, relatively effective. The other one that I've also heard of is keeping the blade in low sixth with the wrist broken. Essentially, if you have a pommel, you bring it out here over the wrist. And I was taught early on that is just how you do sixth, that is the way you do that parry. I have since learned otherwise, that all you need to do is just bring the hand in supination and bring it to the outside of the blade, or outside of the body to cover the outside high line. That's something to try. I think you'll find this uncomfortable, so I don't emphasize it. The point is you just want to get it to the outside of your body to cut off that line. But that keeping it lower with the wrist cocked means that you have a deceptive range, in that I'm here and I extend it forward. Seeing it, you see the point, you can see how much it goes from that's not really a threat to that's a threat. And all I'm doing is bringing the wrist across and bringing it in line. So that is another position that I've come across. I've never heard a specific name for that position. I just learned that as a funny little thing. I have heard this called the Spanish position, but that is unlike anything I've seen in traditional Spanish fencing. I would believe that this is the Italian guard from the French position, because I learned this while I had a French teacher, and that this, coming all the way over, is the French position, because I learned that from an Italian lineage teacher. So in that case, it might be something where their lineage has them do certain things, and things that fall outside that lineage become kind of exaggerated and corrupted, and oh, that's the Italian way of doing it, or that's the French way of doing it, where it's not actually true. It's just that that's their interpretation. The actual sixth guard that I learned was like this, and so the blade is high, and the blade is pointing at the eyes in theory. That's how I learned it. But if you drop it down and bring it in line, as you would in the Italian form as I learned it, and just bring it over, that would be their interpretation of sixth. Likewise, where you have the wrist broken in line in sixth, if you bring that up and in line as you would bring it in line to the Italian form, that would be how the French would consider the Italian guard. So it's not that it's actually that way, that's just how they looked at another system through their principles. I'd say it's kind of like if you saw a lot of boxing and you didn't know anything about how to box. You didn't know actually how to make a fist and what those things are about, but you saw them with the gloves, and so you thought that they were just slapping at each other with gloves. That's what you think boxing is, because you don't actually know the mechanics. You're just watching it and applying what you are aware of. I'd say that's the closest thing to those. When I have practiced, I've seen a lot of different variations. I've seen people use essentially a cross guard position like this, where they're not going to deal with anything below the head, because when we get to target zones, the head is offline and foil. But this protects pretty much everything in the torso relatively effectively. And then the biggest issue is getting that upward riposte. So those are just some basic theories of blade work and guard. Pretty much any parry position can be a guard, and I'll cover a bit of that when we get to parries. I don't want to emphasize it too much now because I think there's enough for you to cover and practice. I will throw a few things out there when I get to attacks, but right now I just want you to take in, see what you like, and process what I've put up, and of course talk to me. You know, something doesn't make sense or you want a little clarification, reach out. That's what I'm here for. So give those footwork positions a try. When you get a weapon, or if you have a weapon, just try some of those, and then when I get to the parries, see which one feels best to you, and we can cover some of those theories in a later video. Until then, keep your teacups empty.